Alrighty. Well, welcome to Think Tank with Scott and
Yep,
Will.
yep, I'm Scott.
I'm Will. And virtually this is our little place where we get to back and forth talk a little bit about some deep, full, meaningful subjects. Maybe something that you guys can benefit from a little bit.
That's it. Well, we're going totally raw with this first one. A lot of free range thought here. So if there's a few misspellings or a few stuff ups, then you can.
I'm sure there will be.
We can chalk that one down for our lack of preparation, eh?
Yeah, well,
we promise we'll be good in the future.
we'll be good then. But for now, it's totally just balls our way through it.
Absolutely. That's the best way, I think.
Well, I want to start off with just saying we've already had a request come through from Brendo. Brendo Shane wants to know, a mate of mine.
Yeah, I know the fella.
Yeah, he wants us to talk about racism.
Okay.
Now,
okay.
I sat down and I was thinking, racism, it's pretty straightforward. Man, what the fuck? It's bad shit, you don't want to do it. But then I started thinking maybe there's a little bit more to it than that. Where does racism come from? And is it an ingrain of the individual, or is there something more behind it? And maybe instead of arguing the point as to, there's a lot in the media lately about racism on public transport.
Yeah.
Well, maybe instead of arguing the point against racism, why don't we examine the points towards racism?
Okay.
See if it has any justification, and then maybe we can talk about the flip side of the coin that everybody else is so willing to talk about.
Okay. All right. Well, in that case, do we want to break it down into here's why racism is the case, and here's on a cultural standpoint why racism is a benefit, or do we want to say here is the moral upswing of racism?
Well, I'll ask you. Do you believe that racism has any sort of benefit as in a society or to an individual? Personally, if you think so, you.
Well, I don't know. If you want to go from a cause and benefit thing, I suppose from for a homogenized society, for example.
Yeah.
Racism would be an example. Okay, here's what we know. Here's our hidebound traditions, and this is what we believe as a culture. We've got one religion, we've got one sort of almost one point of view,
set of beliefs,
and as xenophobic and as unpleasant contemporary as that is, I suppose that would be a benefit of them continuing to keep their cultural values moving in the same direction. Now, whether that's helpful for the individual, I don't know. Because, it's a flip side sort of thing. Say, if you're an individual, you fall in love with a lovely lady who's from a different culture, you can't get married there.
Well, you're the minority. You become the minority in the majority rule society.
Yeah.
And I believe, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but
No.
in regards to the whole racism can assist a society in growing, well, that's virtually what happened in ancient China. Was it China? Virtually the West came in. And, they brought coffee, all that sort of stuff, and all their beliefs, the Chinese martial arts and all that sort of stuff, and the spiritualized Chinese culture, the way of looking at things, was at risk because of the way the Western man came in with his beliefs and all these sort of things and enforced that racially onto China. And I suppose, the flip side of the coin there could have been,
are we talking like the Golden Triangle with opium, tea, and all that?
Yeah, very much so.
Yeah, China was getting on some aspects very much exploited with that because the British needed tea, and they're going we have lots of opium to sell. Opium was illegal in China, but they had a lot of opium addicts because we'll just black market opium.
Yes,
we'll get tea
money.
because the British needed tea massively. It was ridiculous. But that was a very nasty situation.
Well, there you go. I didn't even know that much about it.
But that's about the extent of all I know. There's a Flash game, actually, where you can play an opium trader. It's actually really cool.
Well, let's not try to get people hooked on opium.
Well, you get tea, but you sell it.
Oh, well, let's not get people hooked on tea, then. Tea's pretty dangerous stuff, Keep you awake on that.
That's my excuse.
But maybe if China, Golden Triangle, all that, was a little bit more, maybe a little bit less accepting of the Western people into their daily lives, well, who knows what China would be right now? China's, it's a world power at the moment. Imagine what it would have been if, it had continued on its course.
Well, China's going through that right now. You've got the old Communist Party line, Mao's Cultural Revolution, where it basically said, okay, we're communist versus the previous Chinese government. Like
Yeah.
they had World War One, World War Two, or something, so they didn't have a chance to deal with
Well, they never.
crush Mao.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
Mao came back and he took over. Eventually, over a guerrilla campaign, it was like 30 years or something. That's about the extent of all I know with that. But they're having it now. You've got the old party line where, okay, communist China, not that communism, I find in the reality, is actually a lot of what they do. They've got a
Well,
stock
yeah.
exchange, they've got
I
a
don't
middle
believe
class.
that
That's
it's
a bit,
actually called communism anymore, but I'd see what you're saying. Yeah,
That's
it's a
it, that's
branch of it.
but they've got the whole thing where they want to toe the party line, and it's okay. Here's what China should be. Here's what you should be, and they've got a massive firewall that basically says they've got people they employ to do nothing but look at internet posts, look at this and that, to ensure that everyone is behaving properly. It's thought that they're trying to do a
So
okay.
it's
This
very
is
much
how
like
you
North
act. This is
Korea.
how you think. North Korea. I'd imagine that's much the same.
Well, yeah.
We don't know
Well,
much
my
about North
understanding
Korea.
of North Korea is very much the same thing. Everything's screened.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
If something doesn't happen the way that this is the law. If it doesn't
Mm.
happen this way, we have to get rid of that. That's well, I suppose you could say that's a very racist way of viewing what's coming in and out.
Oh, well, I
You
suppose
know.
it's very much an attempt to culturally control. I
Well,
mean,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
it's from I suppose from a racial standpoint, it's here's what we believe should be the case for this entire country, and our
Yep.
racial ideology is that you've got to be traditionally Chinese, you've got to do this, you've
Well,
got to
you got to
respect
follow
the party,
these
you've
views.
got to have a picture of Mao in your damn living room, and all the rest. But they're doing that right now because you've got the new generation that's growing up. They're influenced by Western society. They've got the internet. They can see that they can have their opinions and
So it's
express
the
them.
battle between the Western society and the cultural beliefs that you're
Well,
talking
that's
about
all
now.
the official
Really?
cultural
Well,
beliefs,
the
I suppose,
official.
governmental cultural beliefs.
Yeah.
And I mean, we can talk about tyranny. We can talk about government thing on another episode.
Oh,
But
easy.
they're having that clash on old world ideology, or the old party line ideology, and the reality of a new situation, a new kind of information that they can't control. I mean, people like, okay, they're getting in China, they're getting Western TV programs censored a bit and
Yeah.
definitely under control, but they're getting, like Everybody Loves Raymond or something like that in China. I mean,
Oh,
that
well, I
has a
see.
cultural effect no matter what you
Because
do.
of the culture that video programming like Raymond
Mm.
was brought up in. It's acceptable, those sort of things. But
Mm.
the upbringing of, well, I suppose what another way of saying what you're saying here is the upbringing that you want to give your kids it's a battle against the upbringing of what's on TV, what's on the radio. That's not your culture, and especially that's the case in
Mm.
China. Especially with like you're saying World War One, World War Two. It's not so much I'm gonna flick on the TV and
Mm.
like for us, we don't flick on the TV. There's a Chinese guy and we get oppressed because oh my god, he's eating noodles.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
don't know, whatever. But it's a lot more than just TV, radio. It's partially government and stuff over there. It's segmented off. They have to screen it out and things like that.
Well, I mean, I suppose part of what a government does is really say, okay, here's the traditions, and I'm going to continue those traditions that are of use to me.
Well, yeah.
For example, like keep your head down, work hard, respect the traditional beliefs of China, respect these party beliefs of China, and don't say anything against it. You're not allowed to say anything against it, which is a benefit we can have here in the Western world.
Well, yeah.
For the most part.
For the most part, I do have to agree with you there because when you really think about the beliefs of the Chinese people, well, honestly, if you were to go out on the street, if I was to go out on the street tonight and say, what do you think of the belief of the Chinese people, etc., etc., and start talking to them about it, I'm sure they would be very, very unimpressed with the idea of just taking on somebody else's beliefs like that. But when you sit down and you think about it, they really do have a really great set of beliefs that we could learn from. They're very, very respectful.
They've got traditions, and they've got a history of philosophy and science, and all the rest going thousands of years.
They're not dumb people.
No, not at all.
And
well, it's a melting pot of a lot of cultures, actually. China.
Well, yeah, and when you think about it, how far back does China go? Pretty goddamn far.
Yeah.
Excuse my language, but I don't know. I think the point that we're really boiling down to at the moment is racism kind of looks beneficial in certain situations.
In certain situations, I agree. Well, taking it back to it, what I think is really the only real upswing of racism, because it's very much a double-edged sword.
Oh yeah.
Racism is well, it's xenophobic by default.
Well, yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
really,
yeah.
you're making comparisons about other cultures based upon without,
Yours,
based
yeah.
upon not experience, not getting to know the individual, but you're just saying, okay, here's a whitewashed blanket that says they look like this, therefore I don't like them,
Agreed.
or therefore I
Yeah.
believe this, and this about them.
Right.
That we can bring classism into that as
Well,
well,
yeah,
but
yeah, yeah. Well, you
it's
see,
a different
that's another
angle of the
point that
same
I was
thing.
going to touch on with you, Scott. Okay, let's stop using the word racism for a moment.
Okay,
All right, now let's try to describe racism without using the term racism. Like, what is an? Let's be honest. Racism is just. I'm starting to believe that racism is a label
yes,
that I'm like this here is happening. It involves two people of different racial backgrounds. Therefore, I'm gonna call it racism. Well, let's be honest. We've got elitism, we've
hmm
got culturalism, we've got sexism, we've got all these things where it's like I have a set of beliefs
hmm
and I don't want to alter these beliefs. Therefore, I'm either just going to aggressively or forcefully reject yours,
yeah.
or I'm going to attempt to convince you of mine
Well, I mean,
virtually.
really, that's functionally a part of what the brain does.
Well, yeah,
I mean, your brain goes, okay, well, I've got to work out a lot here, so I'm going to just do some shorthand here. You know, based upon my experience with these and sort of things, if I see this, I'm going to assume that.
yeah. Well, it's the
And you
response.
grow
Yeah,
up either explicitly or implicitly being taught those cultural values as well. It's
yeah.
like the Western world, for example, tends to have a little bit of an unlike, a lot more when you really think about it, against, say, the Jewish people, for
Oh
something
yeah.
like that. I mean, there's words for saying someone who is tight with money, for example, is a Jewish slur. There's assumed and
Yeah,
the
well, we know what you mean by
yeah,
that.
and,
But I think you've made a really good point there,
hmm,
and again, when we look at the Jewish culture, like,
hmm,
again, how far back does the Jewish culture go?
yeah.
Some of the
So
Jewish culture's belief systems are actually really good. How often would you go out into the streets or go into the city and hear someone being called an effing Jew or whatever,
yeah,
you
yeah,
know?
yeah.
So,
Well, I mean, personally, from my experience, I've only ever met two or three Jews that I've known have been Jewish in
yeah.
my life, and two of them have been gay. So I mean, that's the thing, and I
Okay.
mean, just to get off
Sorry, it was
track,
your facial expression when you said. I'm not laughing because I'm racist to Jews or anything. I'm just. It's just the. I didn't expect that.
yeah. But the funny thing about that, getting off track, is that I was asking them, so how do you meet other men, for example, and they were saying it's a real problem because you know how the whole little bit of that tiny bit that I know about is okay, you're Jewish, you're only supposed to associate with other
Well,
Jews
yeah,
like
yeah,
like a
yeah,
relate
yeah, yeah.
like
I mean,
romantic
there's. It's not
relationships.
clear cut, but that's virtually the
There's a
loose,
bit of
the
pressure.
loose belief.
Yeah, there's a bit of
Yeah.
pressure in that. But he was only really allowed to see other gay Jewish men.
So he's not only restricted in his selection of partners,
Hmm.
he's also selected in his selection of partners' background.
Yeah, well, I don't see that to be a large potential pool of people
No,
in
maybe 30,
in
40
Western
people.
Sydney. You're pretty much restricted there. But the only
Jeez, I'm just trying to think of that, man.
getting back on topic though,
Sorry, yeah,
because
yeah.
as we do this when we talk,
We do. We
you
get
will
off topic and we'll go off
you
and
will
you.
either love or hate it. So I hope that you love it.
Oh, so do I.
But the thing is, that there's been a I've lost my train of thought.
Gay Jews.
No, 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 no. Not moving back onto topic. The only real benefit that I can see, um, say for example, taking it down for racism, yeah,
Yeah,
to sort of the brain processes, you get a lot of your mental shorthand. Let's take cars for example,
easy. Yeah.
where you go, okay, well, I don't know individually each car, but if I see a fast
Ah,
moving
yeah.
car, I'm going to assume that cars are dangerous. You know,
I see what you're
you
getting.
know.
Yeah, yeah. You're There's a term for this. I read about it, and I
Hmm.
can't believe it. You group similar things into.
That's it. Your brain
Yeah.
naturally groups things into, things for easy identification. This thing has claws, it's
Segmenting, I think
dangerous.
it's called, or
You know,
something like that.
this thing
Yeah.
is big and makes noise, it's dangerous.
Well,
This thing's
yeah.
moving fast, it's dangerous. And it's just a functional way for your brain to protect itself. It just makes assumptions of danger. It's
Or the unknown, or things like
yeah,
that.
I think there's also a particular part of your brain or effect on your brain that says, okay, this particular dark color is associated with danger. It's why when you see political attack
Ah,
ads, they're
yes,
always in
yes.
black and white because it's here's this person in an unflattering view, they're dangerous.
Interesting.
So
Interesting.
I mean, I think we come a lot from a
So what you see
A brain
also,
point of view, like a mental point of view, like a lot of racism is, or even assumptions made about people that aren't necessarily true,
so
is
there's
based.
underlying, what's what I'm looking for? Causes?
Absolutely. Well, a
Well,
lot
not
of.
even causes. More of a, like determinism. Each cause has an effect, which has a cause, which has an effect, etc., etc. You think
Exactly. Yeah.
maybe when you see or are exposed to some of these racial traits, I suppose, that could be
Well,
a
assumed
cause.
racial traits at
Well,
the
yeah,
very
well, that's a
least.
better
Yeah.
way of putting it. I think assumed racial traits. Whenever you become exposed to these sort of things, um, it responds to a part of the brain that is an effect,
Yeah.
which then becomes a cause to a belief, which becomes, the list is ongoing. It'll literally go on forever.
Yeah.
But eventually, you're going to come down to a point where you have a decision making process where you're like, that guy's a Jew or he's Chinese or he's got red hair or whatever the hell he's
Mm-hmm.
got that I
It could
don't
be the
have.
way he's dressed,
Yeah,
even.
well, yeah,
Yeah.
I didn't even consider that actually,
Hmm.
And well, let's be honest, people dress very differently
Hmm.
depending on their culture.
Yeah,
You
absolutely.
know, I mean, I dress this way. Well, look at you and I. We are
Hmm.
pretty much wearing the exact same thing: boots, jeans, and a leather jacket.
That's
And
it.
we both have this, if not the same, a
Hmm.
very goddamn similar upbringing.
Yeah.
You know. Now, if I'm going to go out to the city, I could tell you there's going to be a whole handful of people with
Hmm.
our background dressing exactly like us. You
Exactly.
know.
Well, it's
So if
just
we're going to see someone who's dressed like us, who probably has the same background, but you've seen someone who's dressed like you, and then you get that effect, which is a cause towards your
hmm.
decision making process of that guy's like me. I can
That's it.
accept that.
Well, you know more about it, so you can empathize more with someone that looks
Similar,
similar from a
yeah.
socio-economic, socio-cultural background that says, okay, this person I can empathize with, I can trust this person. It's a lot of group thinking, group mentality. I mean, previously
Yeah, like the
it's
Samayan part of the brain, right? The monkey
mm,
part.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
simian, yeah, part of the
Sorry,
brain.
I pronounced that wrong.
Yeah, but there's a cracked article called Monkey Sphere. Look it up, but we'll
I'll link that in
we'll
the
link it.
video.
Thank you very
Yeah.
much, Will. But what the originally early man, I would say, was okay. It's very much dependent upon okay. So you meet another tribe. Okay,
Yeah.
they have a different look to you. It's very much an us versus them thought.
We'll look at the bloody.
Well, society's built upon us versus them,
Yeah.
and
I
this
mean,
is
look at bloody Aztecs.
yeah.
There's all their culture right there.
Mm. But that's it. I mean, the whole original thinking of your brain, tribalism. You growing up in a group. Here's another group. They're a threat to me. It's an us versus them. I think racism and all of this is just a holdover for that, because you can't really encompass all these individual facets about every single person you meet. Your brain doesn't have the time to do it. So you're just going to go, okay, this person looks like this. This person has this coloration. This person dresses this way. I'm going to make assumptions based upon that from either my experience, my society's experience, or my already held beliefs. So everyone is guilty of racism.
Right.
You make assumptions based upon people as a group rather than an individual. Only when you meet them, only when you get to understand them and can empathize with them, is the point where you treat them as an individual.
Well, I think you were actually speaking about something to me earlier.
Hmm.
Obviously, we didn't have the opportunity to record that,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
it was the circle of people who I think it's 151.
200, I think it was.
200,
I think it was
something
the
like that.
monkey sphere. That's what it was
Oh,
called.
yeah,
Yeah,
there,
yeah.
that's what you. Yeah, I see what you mean. That makes a lot more. A quick rundown for those of you who don't know what we're talking about. Virtually, you have a small sphere of people who you can associate with, you care about. Anyone outside of that
Hmm.
is sort of just they're just bloody NPCs
Yeah,
for
that's it.
for all you
That's
care.
exactly it. I mean, you have a group of like, I think we're up to about 200 people we can do, which is people we know and people we can understand. And that those people are the us. The people we
Well,
know,
yeah,
we
that's
treat them as
Jerry, that's Tom,
individuals.
but that guy's not in my 200.
Mm,
So that's just that guy.
yeah,
I can punch that guy in the head if I want, but if I
yeah,
punch Tom in the head, I'm gonna
yeah.
feel
But
bad
you
about it.
empathize with Tom. Tom's having a hard day. Tom's just had a breakup with his
Yeah,
girlfriend.
yeah.
You have to treat Tom well. He's your friend.
Because you have a connection within the monkey sphere.
But let's say there's that same Tom. You don't know this Tom. You see him on the train or something. He's yelling on the phone. You're like, I hate this guy. This guy is a them. This guy is a
Yeah,
jerk.
he's in them. That's
This
it.
guy is a problem. I don't like him because of the way he looks. I don't like him because of the way he dresses. He's the problem with society. He's some bogan guy, using Australian vernacular. He's some dera guy who's causing a problem for me on a train. But you can't without knowing the person, see them on the inside. You can only see the superficial outside things. And I think that's what racism is, same with everything else. It's your brain going, okay, here's what I know. This person isn't part of my tribe. Therefore, I'm going to make assumptions about him to protect myself.
Well, even the people inside your sphere, like you and I.
Yeah.
Let's just say that you were black.
Yeah.
We give each other shit all the time.
Mm.
And I'm not using black for any particular purpose. It was just the first racial, trait that came to my mind. Just an example. I could call you any number of racial slurs. In fact, I think I do call you any number of racial slurs, and you don't take offense.
No.
Because I think that's the difference. I think that is where racism lies. Racism lies outside the sphere of people you can associate with.
Yeah.
So to bring it down to a really basic level, I can think of two really good questions that people might be willing to hear our opinion of.
Yeah.
One is, should you be offended by racism? And number two is, racism is more of a thing outside of the sphere.
Yes.
So what is really the thing that concerns people so much about it? Because let's be honest, man. My view of racism is very much, I don't mean to sound like a jerk, but who cares? People.
Admittedly, that's you coming from I'm white middle class background.
Well, I suppose you're right.
Well, probably lower middle class.
Oh, well, thank you very much.
We're going to be 100%. But not to be rude.
Honestly, I don't give two shits.
Yeah.
But you see, then again, that's my personality.
Yeah.
So maybe somebody else would have taken that really personally, and then you would have been a racist prick.
Yeah.
I don't know.
But I mean, the only way you can, this is that comes into a thing called white privilege. There's a couple of really good TED talks on the same thing. The TED's an educational seminar sort of, just TED.com, and they talk about various topics
TED.com
and that sort of stuff. But there's some really good ones on white privilege, for example. It's because we're coming from a white middle class background, and we don't receive a lot of racial tension in our everyday lives. You know what I mean? A lot of the people we associate with are also white, or at least from that sort of cultural region,
cultural background, Europe, association,
or what have you. But because you don't, look that particular way, or you're part of a culture that's predominantly associated to look that way. You could be, like take Australia for example. It's everyone you see on the TV selling ads for the most part is slightly ochre, slightly
short, sort of over the top.
Is very much an Australian, the cultural mores.
Well, yeah.
And if you don't fit the cultural mores, then people make less appealing, assumptions about you, and you're not aware of it because you don't receive that kind of
because of the
discrimination because you're part of the assumed majority,
because
upper echelon.
There you go. You're part of the majority rules society.
That's it, exactly, and that's why racism is a real problem. Because if you want to have an equal egalitarian, you know how you pronounce that? I can never say it properly.
No, I have no clue.
Egalitarian, I think it is. It's basically if you want a fair sort of democratic kind of society, you have to say, okay, well, we have to treat people as equal as we can. It doesn't matter what their skin color is, ability and their ability and personality is the main focus.
It's sort of like how utilitarianism. It's not so much what you're doing, who you're doing, etc., etc. It's more of what's the term? Buddy, you create something. It's not so much who the person
your worth is based upon what you can create. Your worth is based upon what you give out.
Well, yeah, and it doesn't matter where it comes from. One is one. One good act is 1 point value. I really wish I could. It's on the tip of my tongue, and I swear, when we finish this recording, I'm going to tell you what it is.
Just chuck it in the comments. Just chuck it in the description below.
But it's a really good way of putting it because virtually, it's it doesn't really matter. It's very much black and white. In other words, this is what's done, and then therefore this is what it is. You can't really think of it any other way.
Okay.
Virtually, you do something good, get 1 good points. You do something bad, get 1 bad points. There's no grey area. It's irrespective of any other way of thinking. And for the most part, that's probably why I'm not a very big fan of it. But utilitarianism really does has a place as a thought game. But I think we're doing really good getting through this, but I think what
I
we
think we need
should.
to move a bit more back on
Well,
track. I
yeah,
think
yeah.
just for fairness. I mean, I'm happy to talk like this
Oh,
for
me
hours,
too. But I think
but
we're going to start rambling.
if we want a result for people and to give them deliver something for them, I
All
think
right.
we need to move
So
back on track.
the result. How do you not be bothered by racism? Like how? Like obviously that's a big one because, well, I've been doing a lot of writing about this very
Mhm.
thing that I'm about to say.
Yeah, yeah,
A lot of this racism things comes from you, not whoever's coming from.
yeah.
Because people are always going to say things,
Mm.
but if you're taking it so personally to be offended, maybe you have to change your belief system instead of telling people to change their belief system. Because people are always like, we were just talking about, the monkey sphere, all that sort of stuff, how, we got things in the brain we don't even quite understand,
Mm.
which are affecting the way that we say, view, speak, etc., etc.
Mm.
Well, instead of trying to change this in somebody else, why don't you attack the real problem here? Is someone saying something to you that you really don't appreciate? Fair enough. Maybe you're justified in that. But surely, whenever we introspect on ourselves, we find something we don't want to admit. We got to admit that anyway.
Mm. Mm.
So maybe it's not them that have to change. Maybe it's the person who's accepting the racial slur. You
Yeah.
know, and I don't want people to misjudge me by saying, I'm a middle. Will,
Mm.
am a middle class white I'm the majority of the majority of rural society, and I get
Mm.
that, and I can totally understand if people are going to say, "Well, f this guy, he's never been in my shoes."
That's it. That's
You
it.
can
Well, we
totally.
have it. That's
Well,
exactly it.
that's
We can
exactly
only
right.
come from our own
We have, and I'm
perspective.
not going to pretend that I have or you have or anything like that.
Mm.
But what I can say is, you can't change somebody else's way of looking at you, but you can change the way
Mm.
that you receive things.
Oh, agreed. Agreed. I mean, I think you can do a bit of both, honestly.
Okay.
I
Yeah.
mean,
Tell me more.
okay, you can start from yourself because ultimately that's where it first starts is yourself. You can challenge your base assumptions that say, okay, I'm going to make blanket assumptions about other people based upon my culture that I've grown up in. But I don't think that serves me well anymore. So I'm going to make assumptions. I'm going to make less assumptions about people. I'm going to make the assumption that everyone is different and maybe this behavior that I'm seeing with a person, or maybe this person as I'm seeing them now, is not the best representation of them. I can say, okay,
Fair
I'm
call.
seeing this person. I'm going to make an assumption about his religion. I'm going to make an assumption about who he is as a person because based upon the way he looks. And maybe that assumption is flawed.
Maybe it is.
I mean, maybe it's
I mean,
not.
it's not an easy thing to admit to yourself. Trust me, I've fucking done it. But
Well, you're fighting your I mean, you're fighting a cultural, your cultural
a core
upbringing.
belief.
Yeah, and
You really are.
you're fighting against your brain's natural assumption to group people into threat and not threat. And the people that are not threat are people that look like you. And often the
Well,
most
yeah.
valuable way to learn and to experience and to grow as a person is to learn and add new people to your tribe. The people that are not you.
Well, expose yourself to people who are not yous.
That's it.
Thems.
But I think it starts with the individual. I mean, there was a great.
Yeah.
There was an Australian general recently that was okay. We don't, we have a problem with sexism in the army, a few other things on that related nature.
Yeah.
And it was basically the standard that you walk past is the standard you accept. So I think ultimately people need to be a bit more introspective
Okay.
to sort of get a handle on this issue. There will always be racism. Your brain's natural assumption and your people's cultural assumptions as a group is to make assumptions about other people. They say that, okay,
Agreed. Yeah.
we are this is what we stand for. These other people are the other people. And we make assumptions based upon that. I mean,
because it's us and them,
yeah,
pretty much, in very layman's terms.
That's it. It's very much an us versus them. Your brain is hardwired as an us versus them.
And
That's how we survive.
It's not. I don't think. Sorry to interrupt you. You can continue, but I just wanted to quickly interject. That's not anybody's fault.
No,
that's
it's not.
just we're monkeys. That's what monkeys do. We've studied monkeys and we've seen this in the way that they make decisions about things.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, what differentiates us from a lot of other great apes, a lot of other monkeys, is that our monkey sphere, our ability to put people in as an us category, our tribe, is larger than other monkeys are able to.
True.
Sometimes they can only do about 50 individuals, 100 individuals. We can do about 200 or so.
But again, that comes back to the whole monkey sphere thing.
That's it. That's exactly right. Now, it's not our fault. It's just the mental hardware that we've been given. I mean, it's our responsibility as enlightened people, as good people, quote unquote,
Cool. Yeah.
is to basically say, okay, what serves me is to not make assumptions about people. What serves me is to treat people
Well, that's it.
individually.
What serves me?
Hmm.
You know,
I mean,
that's really it.
if you want to be, I suppose, as utilitarian as you can, you just say, well, it doesn't matter about other people. It matters about me. My assumptions are true until they're not. But I mean,
Well, yeah.
and that's
Utility. You know,
I
that's it.
think that's on in some level how people act. I mean, on some level, that's how I suppose I would act as well. You know,
I would have to say that's probably how most, if
yeah,
not
I would
all,
say,
people.
yeah,
You know?
on some level, I think just about everyone does act like
Yeah.
that. But you have to say to yourself, well, I'm going to not do that. I'm going to just, defy my mental upbringing, or sorry, my
Your mental belief system,
yeah, I'm going to
almost. You know,
defy the belief system that I have based upon myself as a human being,
the
based
big
upon the
G's.
culture,
Yeah.
and just say, okay,
I'm gonna expose myself to some new things.
and that's it.
I'm gonna make new decision making, well, not even a decision making process. I'm gonna create new belief systems from countering the old ones. I'm going to expose myself to things that my old belief systems are against in order to create new ones.
Hmm.
You know, and if you do that and you can and come back to the same conclusion that you're at before, well, at least you gave it a freaking shot.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, I mean, really, it's you're saying to yourself, okay, I'm making assumptions here because you'll always be making assumptions, but these assumptions I'm making may or may not actually be correct. And to actually find out if this assumption is true, I'm going to need more data. So if I'm going to say, okay, this person is some sort of racial slur, I'm going to make assumption that they're a bad person or what
Bad
have you.
driver or whatever.
Exactly. It's perfect example is driving.
Well,
Everyone
yeah.
else is they're a jerk, they're a
Everybody
bad
else
driver.
is
You
a
don't know
moron.
them.
Yeah, yeah.
They might be a great driver, just
Outside the
not
monkey
today.
sphere. You know,
That's
that's
it.
it.
They're the them on the road.
It's,
Everyone else is a them.
yeah, because them's have done something to you, but when us has done something to me's,
Mm,
then it's very oh, don't worry, bro. You know, I know you didn't mean it, but
mm.
that guy didn't mean to cut you off. Well, maybe he did. I don't freaking know. Let's just assume that that guy didn't mean to cut
Well,
you
maybe
off.
your assumption is correct, and he's just a bad
Well,
driver.
maybe he is. You know,
But
but how do we get off saying that?
mm,
How do we? Where are we justified? You know, there was a there was a I was listening to a song the other day. Can't
mhm,
remember who it was by.
mhm,
Joe
mhm.
Jackson or something like that.
Okay.
Real old song. And one of the quotes in the song was, um, "Don't call me a," well, the word he used, quote, "faggot,"
Mm,
unless you're my friend.
yeah.
You know, and that's a real good way of putting it. You
Mm.
know, everybody out there will, this guy cut me off. He's a horrible driver. So what? Okay, where do I get off telling him that he's a goddamn jerk and hanging out the window? Oh, man, F, you're a bad driver. You know.
I mean, I think that particular bit comes more down to what kind of behavior do you think best serves you as a person, and that's not to just yell
What color
abuse at them
looks
out
good
of the
on you?
window,
Yeah.
you know.
All right.
But really, the main thing is just to not make you can make as many assumptions as you want about a person because you're inevitably going to do it. But what you have to say to yourself is these assumptions that I'm making may not be true.
And that, I think that's the biggest thing.
Yeah,
Honestly, I think that's hitting the nail on the head right there.
yeah,
You know, racism, what I may or may not be experiencing is true. I need to question, get more information. Something I do a lot is a second opinion.
yeah.
You know, I always freaking question myself. I question you a lot, Scott,
Mm.
about the way I act because I'm like, yeah, I'm right here, but there's a pretty good chance that I might have completely missed something and stuffed up. I can go to one person or maybe two people who's going to be like, nah, Will, yeah,
Well, I
a
mean,
bit in the wrong.
there's an example that we can use that's very much applicable to us. I mean, let's take Trevor. We both know Trevor.
Yeah, Trev's a good guy. I like
That's it.
him.
He's a great guy. But I mean, in certain circumstances, Trevor looks like a real lower class
Oh yeah,
criminal
yeah. He
person. I
look,
mean,
yeah,
that's what he looks like sometimes.
but he's
But
not.
but he's not.
He's not. He's a great
That's the
guy.
thing. He's a really intelligent, genuine person.
You know,
He'll be there for
he's
you in a
got
minute.
the skinny, the shaved head, and the tattoos and stuff, and he smokes. You know, and it just the way that you look at it, like I like Trev.
Yeah,
You
Trev's a
know,
great guy.
the first time I saw him, I'm like, who's this guy? You
Yeah.
know, but after the years of getting to know him and stuff, he's not the way he looks.
That's it.
You know, he's a very smart guy. I'd like to have him actually come in here once or twice to get his
I
opinion
think
on
he'd add a
something.
lot of value to it.
Yeah, he's not a dumb guy by any stretch of the imagination.
That's exactly right.
But maybe you're right. Maybe that's This is
I mean,
it's the same
I brought that out
process.
just as an example.
Yeah,
But that's the thing. You know, the
It's the
person
way
that you see
you
on the
see,
street
you know.
that you assume so much about without any more information.
it's not even the race; it's just the view.
That's it.
you know.
It's a viewpoint. You're making assumptions that may not be true,
And
and for all
may or may
you
not to be
know, and you
questioned.
don't know, this person may be a great contributor to society, may have a great amount of value, may be really intelligent, may make the best apple pie in the world, and
Oh,
you'll never
man.
know. You'll never know until you get to know the person. So what you need to do is just take a step back from yourself and say, okay, I'm making assumptions here.
That
That's
guy's
okay.
angered
That's
me.
perfectly
Yeah.
natural. But these assumptions may not be true. So I'm not going to act from those assumptions. I'm going to act that I don't know about this enough person to judge them. So I'm just going to be as fair as I can. I'm going to look at their actions first.
I think that's a good way of putting it. I think Plato once said, Plato, ancient Greek philosopher, big smart guy.
Yeah, yeah.
It's okay to have bad thoughts and
Mm.
have bad feelings,
Mm.
but once those feelings and thoughts and states get put into action,
Mm.
you become a bad person.
That's it. You're a bad person from what you do. I mean, a lot of people have a lot of bad thoughts, but they don't act upon them because they don't want to be bad people.
Exactly. And
Or
there
a
it is. You
variety
said
of
it right
reasons,
there,
but
man.
Realistic variety of reasons. Maybe it's
Yeah.
just authority. They're afraid of getting
Yeah.
caught or hurt.
Oh, well, look, again, that's another discussion for another
Yes,
day. Thomas Hobbes, all that sort of stuff. I think
Mm.
that'd be a great talk. But honestly, for the most part, I think we really got out what we needed to get out here, And I don't want to say too much more because, frankly, there is way too many overlapping philosophies that we're starting
Agreed.
to touch base on.
What I think we need to do in the future, guys, to anyone who's listening, is what we'll do here is we've been given a topic. All right, we're going to keep grabbing topics from people. We're going to discuss the hell out of them.
Absolutely.
But what we're going to need, I think, is to have a bit more info in front of us that says, okay, here's what we're going to talk. We're going to keep our discussion within this sphere.
Oh, because we'll totally get
Yeah.
off track, as you've already seen.
Yeah.
We're talking about Jews, we're talking about gays, we're talking about driving an apple pie.
What you talking about? That's what it sounds like you're talking.
You being racist?
No,
I'm
no,
kidding.
no.
I'm kidding. Oh, so I had to throw in a joke, But
No, that's more a culturalist thing. 'Cause it's
stop. Okay, seriously.
Yeah.
But if look, seriously, if you got something you want us to talk about, send us a message. If you've got a message, you got us on Facebook. Great. If not, add us. I'll post a link or something. If not, send us a message on the YouTube channel.
Yeah, that's it. Feel free to put us a message on the YouTube channel. PM us on Facebook, what have you. I mean, we're just looking for points to talk about.
Yeah, we're just happy to talk about
We're happy
shit,
to talk about just about anything in regards to philosophy, at least for this channel. We'll talk about anything.
I'm pretty comfortable with talking about anything, But until another topic comes in, I've got a couple up my sleeve that I would really love to get off my chest.
Excellent.
But I have a feeling we're going to get a lot of good responses.
I hope so. I mean, I think there's been a bit of value here. I think we need to, in future episodes, order it a bit more for people. Okay, here's the premise.
Like
we're going to discuss it. Here's points for. Here's points again. Here's our chance to ramble, and here's our conclusion. I think that's the best way to do it. Because if people want us to just talk raw for 2 hours,
we'll do it.
Not a problem.
We'll talk for 17 hours straight.
Yeah, that's it.
There'll be drink breaks.
Yeah,
That's it.
We'll have a coffee, but you won't hear us drinking any of it. One of us will talk for 10 minutes straight, and the other person will have like 2 coffees.
Yeah, they'll have like a snack in front of them, a sandwich or that sort of stuff, But no, you got to understand this was totally freeballed. That's the best way that I can put it. Nothing was scripted. We had one topic that we had to talk. I had a couple of backups in case we didn't go long enough, but we totally have.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to see more structure, be very, very detailed. Racism is very, very broad, and we really did take the devil's advocate here.
Yeah, make it as specific as you'd like it to be. I mean, if you give us a broad topic, we'll pick a subtopic or we'll pick a particular point to focus on ourselves. That's perfectly fine.
I'm happy to do that.
Because otherwise it'll be a 3 hour
But you
discussion.
may miss the point. You're trying to get some idea in specific. I don't know if we answered Brendo's real question here.
Yeah,
but
I
think
we need to get some feedback with Brendo.
Well, I'm definitely going to get in touch with him, and we'll see what we can find. All right? But until then, thanks for listening to Think Tank.
That's it.
I'm Will.
The inaugural first episode of Think Tank.
Yeah.
There's Will. I'm Scott.
And we'll see you guys next week.
That's the one. Next week it is. You take it. You take care, guys and girls. Signing off.
All right, catch this.